rich people and white people, another for low-income people and people of color. So, yeah, the defenses that we've seen, 3, the first, Trump made me do it, that's accurate, but it's not a defense to seditious conspiracy or even unlawful entry. The other defense is Antifa or the Black Lives Matter movement made me do it. There's simply no evidence that any of those folks were at the Capitol with all of these Trump supporters. And the third defense is it wasn't me, but video records, cell phone records, and eyewitness testimony all rebut that defense.
They're getting disused by their own family members and neighbors and friends. I mean, and it's not, it feels like the disparate treatment, Midwin, is not just only black and white, because you have Enrique Tarrio, who is a Afro-Cuban, who's the head of the Proud Boys, who was caught with magazines, with gun magazines, which you cannot have in the district, who was arrested for tearing down a Black Lives Matter sign, and he wasn't held. He was ejected to Florida, but he was still allowed to come out. It almost feels like there's also a difference in if your ideological makeup is conservative or your crimes relate to a conservative ideology, you also can take advantage of the disparate treatment.
Or also what it is that you are there for and what it is that you're protesting. For example, we saw a sort of, I think, a restraint approach with the men who had overtaken the Capitol in the state of Michigan. We didn't see a sort of a huge undertaking to charge them with serious crimes or anything like that. So I think you're right. It seems as though the issue that people are actually protesting seems to mete out a different treatment, but throughout the system. So not just with respect to bail, but also with respect to how police treat you, with respect to what charges you're charged with respect to whether or not you stand trial, with respect to what the sentence will be. And so I think the tell going forward with this case or with these cases are going to be, what will these people be convicted of and what sentence will they receive? Right? We have seen the disparate treatment, not just with bail, but with sentencing, for example, in cases with like Brock Turner and Lori Loughlin. I mean, there's so many different cases in so many different areas of law that make it plain that this disproportionate, like Paul was saying, 2 different systems for 2 different people is accurate.
Yeah, indeed. And Paul, I mean, you've seen the treatment of the the kid who shot up Mother Emanuel Church and got served Burger King, by police. You've seen the release of the teenager who shot 2 white Black Lives Matter activists and is out on bail and and allegedly throwing the white power sign. Like it feels like the ideological disparity is now starting to compete with the racial disparity in terms of treatment. Is this something about judges? Is this because there are so many conservative judges? What do you think that is about?
We can think about implicit bias where, just like we saw at the Capitol on January 6th, white danger isn't perceived the same way as threats from African Americans, even when black folks aren't actually threatening. So with bail, judges are supposed to consider the seriousness of the charges, criminal history, ties to the community, and financial circumstances. And unfortunately, the way that judges evaluate this evidence redounds often to the benefit of people who are rich or people who are white. And look, jail is a bad place if you're awaiting trial. There's evidence that people are more likely to plead guilty because they just want to go home. They can't work or spend time with their families. So there's nothing wrong with being released if you're not a danger to the community. And what we know from these domestic terrorists is that not only do they present a flight risk, but these are white supremacists who attack Congress to overturn the election. They're a clear and present danger to national security and public safety.
Yeah, somebody please tell these magistrates. Midwin Charles, Paul Butler, thank you both very much. Have a great weekend, both of you. And up next, the QAnon identity crisis. What do you do when every bat, poop, bananas belief you cling to, I did say bat, poop, bananas, turns out not to be true? Stay with us.
With new rewards from Chase Freedom Unlimited, I now earn even more cash back. Oh, I gotta tell everyone. Hey, Rita, you now earn 3% on dining, including takeout.
Bon appetit.
Hey, Kim, you now earn 5% on travel purchase through Chase.
Way ahead of you.
Hey, Neil, you can earn 3% at drugstores.
Buddy, I'm right here. Why are you yelling?
Because that's what I do. You're always earning with 5% cash back on travel purchased through Chase. 3% at drugstores, 3% on dining, including takeout, and 1.5% on everything else you buy. Chase, make more of what's yours.
We're all finding ways to keep moving. And at Fidelity, you'll get planning and advice to help you prepare for the future without sacrificing what's most important to you today. Because with Fidelity, you can feel confident that the only direction you're moving is forward.
Age before beauty? Why not both? Visibly diminish wrinkled skin in just 2 days. New Crate Corrector Lotion, only from Gold Bond. Champion your skin.
These days, you need more than an education. So that's what we give you. Introducing career services for life. Learn more at phoenix.edu.
Want to sell the best burger in every zip code? Add an employee. Or 10. Then easily and automatically pay your team and file payroll taxes. That means world domination. Or just the West Side.
Run payroll in less than 5 minutes with Intuit QuickBooks.
Among my patients, I often see them have teeth sensitivity as well as gum issues. Does it worry me? Absolutely. Sensodyne sensitivity and gum gives us a dual action effect that really takes care of both our teeth sensitivity as well as our gum issues. There's no question it's something that I would recommend.
Where can a healthier heart lead you? For people with heart failure taking Entresto, it may lead to a world of possibilities. Entresto helps people stay alive and out of the hospital. Don't take Entresto if pregnant. It can cause harm or death to an unborn baby. Don't take Entresto with an ACE inhibitor or aliskiren, or if you've had angioedema with an ACE or ARB. The most serious side effects are angioedema, low blood pressure, kidney problems, or high blood potassium. Ask your doctor about Entresto.
From Fidelity.
I love it. The technology is easy. I just wear a little sensor, and that's it.
The Dexcom sends my glucose readings to my receiver every 5 minutes, and I can also get it on my smartphone.
It's totally private. No one knows.
Now it's easier being able to see what your numbers are at any time of the day.
You don't have to prick your fingers at all. It's amazing.
It really helps you take control of your life.
Politics doesn't have to be a raging fire, destroying everything in its path. Every disagreement doesn't have to be a cause for total war. And we must reject the culture in which facts themselves are manipulated and even manufactured.
At the same time, President Biden was calling on Americans to believe in facts again. The fact that he was getting inaugurated at all was a huge shock to QAnon supporters who believed the inauguration was an elaborate trap wherein Democrats would be rounded up and executed while the former president retained power. Seriously. As Biden took the oath of office, QAnon followers posted dejected messages, one concluding, "We all just got played," and another saying they were beyond let down. But while some QAnon supporters may have been disillusioned by that gory prediction not coming true, others have moved on to brand new conspiracy theories. And joining me now is NBC News reporter Ben Collins. And Ben, Julian Sanchez tweeted some of these theories that the people who are refusing to accept reality are saying, that Biden's inauguration was faked. There was a lookalike used. Yet the images you're seeing of Biden in the Oval Office are from a movie set. The United States was transformed into a private corporation, but then secretly dissolved and restored into a real government by Trump. So Biden has been cleverly switcherooed and is only president of this now defunct corporation. Trump had to appear to leave office so that the impending military overthrow of the Biden administration would not appear partisan. Like, I mean, it's really, it is bat poop bananas. So is this real, or are these the people who are like the guy who dresses in the horn outfit that are actors trying to make a buck?
I will say we're closer to the second one than the first one at this point. A lot of these people are, they're on their sort of last legs. They're going down sovereign citizen arguments. These are really old arguments. That whole thing about, there's a lot of like symbolism and stuff they look into when they can't really get a grasp on a full thing. But I will say it's still really dangerous what's happening here. Pizzagate died in December of 2016. It was this idea that Hillary Clinton was, running a sex ring through a pizza shop in D.C. And that went away because they were banned from social media platforms after a guy went to go shoot up that pizza shop. But then 10 months later, QAnon happened. And I know a lot of people who thought, how much dumber can it get than Pizzagate? And it did get dumber. It does get dumber. It's not about the information. It's not about what they're saying and how stupid it sounds. It's about the networks that work together to push this information to people who are desperate and want to find answers where there are no answers.
Well, and it also tends to get more white supremacist, right? I remember during the whole Tea Party buildup, there were stories that white supremacist groups were lurking around Tea Party rallies, seeing if they could recruit people. That feels like a place a rich environment, maybe, if they're looking to recruit here too.
Yeah, the beauty of the internet is that this is all out in the open. So we are seeing on Telegram white supremacist groups with scripts to give to dejected QAnon followers. They say, hey, look, I'm a Trump supporter too. I've been let down as well, maybe by Trump, maybe by Q, whatever. But in our world, in the white supremacist world, we don't just let it go by. We don't let this passive plan go by. We drive people to direct action. And that's what, they were targeting people that they called Parler refugees, which were people who had been on Parler all the time and suddenly had nowhere else to go. Those people aren't going back and reading like the Paris Review or something. They're not diving into good information all of a sudden. They are going wherever they can confirm their priors, wherever Hillary Clinton is still this demonic figure. And where is that more than these white supremacist groups on Telegram? So those people are being snatched up right now in real time. And, while we laugh at these people, which we should, that, this is a funny thing that these people thought this was going to happen. The only people not laughing at them are extremists, and they are taking them in.
Well, I mean, yeah. And the other issue is that, just as with the Tea Party, people thought, them with their crazy signs and monkey dolls and everything were like, that's absurd. Then a bunch of them became members of Congress. You now have QAnon that's got almost a dozen people in Congress. And you have Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's now making videos sort of trying to make herself like the QAnon AOC. So how much dangerous is it that they now actually have representatives? There are people in Congress who have power who believe in this.
Yeah, as you can see, that there is this sort of, the king of QAnon is the next one is yet to be sworn in. Donald Trump doesn't have the power to play footsie with those ideals anymore. So now it's, the tip of the spear here is wide open. So there are people angling for this right now. It's Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's, Lynn Wood and Sidney Powell and all these people who jumped into play after the election to do the whole stop the steal thing. All of them are trying to angle to be the central driver of these conspiracy theories. And that's the most important thing about QAnon. It's not about Q. It's not about this. It's not about the cabal that they complain about. It's about this grievance culture where they can substitute in new conspiracies over time, as long as it fits into these networks they've built on the internet that can push these lies all the way to the mainstream media, all the way to places like Fox, where they kind of have to allude to these things. So that's the worry.
And to be very clear,
Marjorie Taylor Greene is going to do that. She's going to try to do this.
Yeah. And just to be very clear, this is also about making money. They push these things and then they monetize it because they make these people into marks that give them cash, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it's a really marketable thing. And sometimes they're not even buying anything. They're just donating money to influencers who say exactly all of their fantasies. They make them, they make them real with a YouTube video. They put some nice fancy graphics on them. And, all along, you can say that Hillary Clinton was that demon, and then somebody will just give you money through PayPal. So this is an extremely lucrative business. It's not going to go away overnight.
Yeah. It's all a grift. Ben Collins, thank you for following all of this for us so that we don't have to follow it as intricately as you do. And thank you very much. Have a great weekend. Coming up, the passing of a monumental figure from the world of sports. That's next. Stay with us.
I'm Mariceli, and I am a real Premier Protein fan. The taste of Premier Protein helps me not feel deprived from sweets. I love it.
With 30 grams of protein, 160 calories, and just 1 gram of sugar, Premier Protein. Too good to be good.
Our retirement plan with Voya keeps us moving forward.
Hey, Kevin. Hey, guys. They have customized solutions to help our family's special needs, giving us confidence in our future.
And in Kevin's.
Voya. Well planned, well invested, well protected.
They're first. First to respond. First to put others' lives before their own. And in an emergency, they need a network that puts them first, that connects them to technology, to each other, and to other agencies. That's why AT&T built FirstNet with and for first responders. The Emergency Response Network authorized by Congress. FirstNet, because putting them first is our job.
At Philadelphia, we know what makes the perfect schmear of cream cheese. The recipe we invented over 145 years ago, and me, the world's best, and possibly only, sommelier. Philadelphia, schmear perfection.
For skin as alive as you are, don't settle for silver. 7 moisturizers, 3 vitamins, 24-hour hydration. Gold Bond. Champion your skin.
Research shows people remember commercials with nostalgia. So to help you remember that Liberty Mutual customizes your home insurance, here's one that'll really take you back.
Wow!
What'd you get, Ryan?
It's customized home insurance from Liberty Mutual.
What does it do, bud?
It customizes our home insurance so we only pay for what we need.
And what did you get, Mike?
I got a bike.
Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty. But getting it from here to here can be a real pain. That's why I started Keepsake, the free app that makes it easy and affordable to have your favorite photos framed. So if you've got a special photo on your phone, download the free Keepsake app and start framing today.
Hi, I'm John Fiorentino, inventor of MoonPod, the most comfortable beanbag on the planet. And our thousands of happy and relaxed customers would agree. Let's see what Anna R. wrote. I live on my MoonPod. It's more comfortable than you can possibly imagine. Try yours today at moonpod.com.
When the world shut down, I opened up 24/7. I went from being a house to a host. I didn't complain once when I turned into a bakery or an office or a playground. But then open spaces came in and brought some order around here. Belongings marched back into bins. Ingredients finally found a home. Beautiful things had purpose again. And let me tell you, the little one's room has never looked so good. Open spaces. Welcome to the new standard of home storage.
Every morning, go beyond the headlines with MSNBC Daily. Now featuring written perspectives by experts you know and trust. For a better understanding of the stories that matter most, start your day with MSNBC Daily at msnbc.com.
With the new president in charge, Dr. Anthony Fauci is live with Rachel. How will the new administration plan to speed up the vaccine rollout, and when might we expect a return to normal? Rachel has questions. The Rachel Maddow Show, tonight at 9 on MSNBC.
I couldn't go out of the ballpark without an escort. I had to stay in another hotel rather than staying in a hotel with my teammates. It was the toughest moment of my life that I've had.
Hank Aaron spoke to NBC's Craig Melvin last year about the searing racism he faced back in the 1970s as he eclipsed Babe Ruth's home run record. Mr. Aaron died this morning, and the world of baseball, and just the world, period, has lost one of its legendary figures. He played for 23 seasons in the big leagues, and his record of 755 home runs stood for more than 30 years. Mr. Aaron was elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1982 and was one of the first high-ranking black executives in baseball, which sadly is still a rarity. Yet despite his almost unparalleled accomplishments, it was his perseverance while facing intense racial backlash that defines his legacy. Aaron, who grew up in deeply segregated Alabama, dealt with racial abuse and humiliation for much of his life, most famously during the final stages of his chase to dethrone Ruth as baseball's home run king in 1973 and 1974. Aaron received a flood of racist hate mail and death threats from people outraged that a black man would dare overtake a white baseball legend. The horrific treatment deeply scarred Aaron, but it certainly didn't stop him. On April 8, 1974, at the age of 40, Aaron hit his record-breaking 715th home run in his home stadium in Atlanta and received an 11-minute standing ovation. A black athlete who exhibited incredible grace and strength in the face of such great hostility was now being showered with adulation in the Deep South, cementing his place in baseball and American history. Hammerin' Hank Aaron was 86 years old.
Tonight on All In, Joe Biden and the fierce urgency of now.
We're in a national emergency. We need to act like we're in a national emergency.
Tonight, White House Communications Director Kate Bedingfield on the president's call for action and the push for Democrats to employ the McConnell doctrine.
Winners make policy and losers go home.
Then, breaking news on the start of impeachment as Capitol insurrectionists attempt the Trump made me do it defense in court.
After this, we're going to walk down and I'll be there with you.
All that and the congressman caught trying to bring a gun onto the floor of the House. An All In starts right now. Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. Happy Friday. One of the biggest differences between the last administration and this new one is the recognition, at the very least, of the depth of the crises we are in and the urgency they say they want to bring to fixing them. We've seen that just with the executive actions the new president has taken in 2.5 days, signing at least 28 executive orders, proclamations, and memos on everything from immigration to the climate crisis, the economy, nutritional aid, the response to the coronavirus. And now the basic facts of where we are right now is that, well, one party won and one party lost. But of course, narrowly. It's a narrowly divided country, a deeply divided country. And our constitutional structures give huge advantages to the minority coalition. The party that lost, which is, of course, the Republican Party. And that party and that coalition can use those tools to do tremendous damage to the country. I mean, we have seen them do it. We just made it through their attempt. Remember, a majority of congressional Republicans and the leader of the party, the former president, their attempt to use those tools at their disposal to overturn the results of a Democratic election, to install the loser over the winner against the will of the American people, and therefore spell the end of American democracy as we know it. And all of those Republicans who were part of that plot are now just sitting there as part of our federal government with no repercussions. And we can assume they would do the same thing again if they had the chance, because basically none of them have apologized for their role in it. No one's come forward to say, we shouldn't have done that. That was bad. Joe Biden won. Bad thing we did. And now we have these pressing crises bearing down on us. The most immediate and threatening being the virus. We lost almost another 4,000 people to the virus today. This last wave has been by far the most deadly, and it has caused even more economic devastation. And economists and public health experts from all over agree we need a huge rescue package. This is not some left-wing fever dream. The plan that Biden proposed is, and I keep saying this because it keeps being remarkable, it is endorsed by the Chamber of Commerce. Now, if you've covered Washington, D.C., the Chamber of Commerce is very conservative. They don't like big Democratic spending proposals. They are normally a very right-leaning group. And today, even the former Trump administration's own senior economic advisor came out in support of President Biden's $1.9 trillion rescue package. Kevin Hassett, of all people, telling CNN he is, quote, absolutely in favor of the plan. Quote, there are so many businesses treading water, barely hanging on. Now they are getting hit by another shock. You could end up in a negative spiral for the economy. We made it through last year without a total, utter collapse of GDP because of extremely aggressive stimulus. All of that's true. Everyone knows it. President Joe Biden made his case to the American people today.
We have to act now. It's not just to meet the moral obligation to treat our fellow Americans with the dignity and respect they deserve. This is an economic imperative, a growing economic consensus that we must act decisively and boldly to grow the economy for all Americans, not just for tomorrow, but in the future.
Republicans know that both President Biden and Donald Trump's economist are right on this one. I mean, they've already voted for rescue packages twice under the previous administration, the first one being the biggest when it was an election year and, well, they wanted the economy to do well. But again, this faction that controls a minority of the government, the same one that supported a leader who led an unsuccessful attempt at outright sedition, which we're learning more about every day, that party, that coalition, and that faction is now trying to blockade the economic rescue that we very obviously need. Multiple congressional Republicans, from Senator Pat Toomey to Congressman Kevin Brady, the top Republican on the House Ways and Means Committee, have publicly panned Biden's proposal as a non-starter. And if that is the way it's going to be, look, there is no other option but to take all constitutional legal means necessary, including getting rid of the filibuster, if that's what it comes to just allow the Democratic majority to govern. Because in the absence of that, all of the problems, the deep problems that brought us to this point will only get worse. Joining me now from the White House North Lawn is Kate Bedingfield. She's the communications director for President Biden. Kate, it's great to have you on. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
So the President Biden laid out the logic behind the $1.9 trillion rescue package today. And I do think in the beginning there was a little bit of a question of maybe you can get 10 Republican votes for this. Maybe this can be a kind of, look, we all realize this has to happen. Am I wrong to feel like that sense is slipping away? What's your read on it? What's the White House's read on it?
Well, I do think you're wrong, Chris. I think, as you said, this is a package that has gotten support from the Chamber of Commerce, the Business Roundtable. These are, as you said, these are traditionally conservative groups who've been very supportive of this package. And look, we are in the midst of a tragic crisis in this country. We have 4,000 Americans dying every day from this virus. They're dying in blue states. They're dying in red states. The virus doesn't see party. The virus doesn't see partisan lines. And people all across the country, Americans expect their leaders, including Republicans, to move to support a package that's going to help get this virus under control, that's going to get direct relief into the hands of people who need it, that's going to extend unemployment insurance, that's going to get money that we need for vaccines. I mean, look, Chris, first and foremost, this is a package designed to fund a national vaccination plan. This is a package that is going to help get shots into the arms of the American people. This is critically, badly needed help. And we have every reason to believe that Republicans are going to support it because we're in a crisis moment in this country.
I mean, I'm going to just bracket that, whether there is every reason to believe that Republicans will support it based on recent and further history. But there is a call that the White House is conducting this weekend that I thought was interesting. There's a sort of caucus that's formed by, bipartisan caucus that's formed in the Senate. And there's going to be 7 Democrats and 8 members of the Republican Party on the call, including people like Mitt Romney and Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski. And I believe Joe Manchin will be on the call. What's the idea behind that call? And what does that mean in terms of the crucial tipping point of those members?
Sure. Well, the idea is to talk about how this package is going to help people in their states, is to walk through some of the key provisions that are going to make a difference in people's lives. They're going to help people who are struggling to put food on the table, who are struggling to pay their rent. I mean, we have Americans across this country in incredibly dire circumstances through no fault of their own because this crisis has hammered them. So the idea behind this meeting is to walk through how this package is going to help people, how it's going to help the communities not have to make a decision between whether they keep firefighters or essential workers on the job or fund vaccinations. They're gonna talk through how this money is going to make a difference in the lives of their constituents. So look, President Biden has said from the outset that he believes that we can get Republican support for this package, that people demand it, people all across the country. Remember, President Biden ran on a message of unity, and and won a historic number of votes, 81 million votes, based on the idea that leadership should be about bringing people to the table, about finding consensus, about getting things done. It's not just unity for unity's sake. It's unity to get things done, to get relief into the hands of people who need it. So he's going to continue to work. We, as the White House, are going to continue to work with members of both parties to try to get this bill done and to move quickly, because we need the funding for the vaccine. We need people to be able to get vaccinated. And people all across the country need the relief that this bill would provide.
So if this is true, what you're saying, the sort of urgency of this, which I'm persuaded of course, I think you probably know that, right? This is actually urgent. Then the question becomes, like, is it urgent enough that you just do whatever it takes procedurally if you have the votes? I mean, this is from the new chair of the Budget Committee in the Senate, Bernie Sanders, who says when Republicans controlled the Senate, they used the reconciliation. I just want to read this section because it jumps off of the point here about speed, which is of the essence. 3 principles should guide their efforts, being the Democrats. First, they need to help people fast and visibly. Second, they need to take politics seriously, recognizing that defeat in 2022 will result in catastrophe. Finally, they need to do more to talk about the importance of democracy. They need to deepen American democracy. Let's talk about that first point, which to me seems very pressing at this moment.
So if you go back to 2009, which is the last time Democrats had, or the last session in which they had a governing trifecta, they make a couple mistakes I think they look back on with some regret. One is that they allow Republicans to filibuster almost everything. So they have for a period of time there, 60 votes, they can get things around a filibuster, but they get slowed down. They end up in a million gangs. They get a lot less done. Everything they do get done is much smaller than it should be. Second, they make things very complex, in part to get Republican votes, things like the Affordable Care Act built around private insurance, the Mitt Romney model, because they thought they might get some Republicans. It didn't. And things often take a long time to come into play. Again, the Affordable Care Act took about 4 years to begin delivering health insurance. You don't get reelected for things that are not delivering benefits when the election happens. In the stimulus, they had a tax cut in there that was literally built to be invisible. It was designed so people didn't notice it was happening, under the theory that it would get spent more effectively that way. Democrats have no room for error. They have 50 seats in the Senate. They lose even 1 in 2022. They have no more governing capacity, or at least not through the legislature. And I think most of them, your previous conversation aside, recognize that bipartisan help here is going to be quite unlikely. So there is a lot of pressure on the Democratic side to do things that are big, do things people know are out there, know are helping them, and do them fast enough they can help them maintain seats in 2022.
Yeah, this is the big question here, Adam. I mean, the central truth about American politics right now, to me at least, which is true before the inauguration, after, is that, like, there is a coalition, one of the 2 big ones, empowered by constitutional structures, a faction of which is essentially radicalizing against democracy and towards minority rule. And that's like the ground truth that everything revolves around. And I wonder if the Biden White House understands that.
I mean, I hope they do. I mean, look, you go back to Franklin Roosevelt. He took office at a period where authoritarian governments were taking control all over the earth. Democracy was supposed to be an outdated system. It didn't work anymore. It couldn't meet the problems of modern life. And Franklin Roosevelt came in and he made the government work for people. And he was very conscious of this. He gave a radio address where he said, democracy will save itself by proving itself to the average man and woman that it is worth saving. And that is basically Biden's task right now. It is more important for him to show Americans that that democracy can work. Otherwise, they will enough people will turn to someone who says, well, look, I don't believe in democracy very much, but I can help you. Everybody's corrupt, but at least I'm your corrupt guy. And so it's a very dangerous moment. It is imperative, not just in terms of relief, but in terms of preserving our system of government, that Biden not allow the opposition party to prevent any aid from getting to the American people who need it.
Yeah, I think the three of us agree on that point, and it goes to what you were writing too, Ezra, like that delivering things for people at this point, at this moment of real peril, like we just got out of the car wreck. We're still shaking ourselves off from what happened. We have a news story tonight about how close things came, right? We're going to get to that in a second. That actually delivering tangible results is actually an imperative for reinvigorating the health of the system that has been badly shaken.
Yeah, and it's really important how you think about reinvigorating the system. So there's a book I talk about in there, President's Populism and Crisis. I may have the name wrong from memory. But their argument is that internationally, populists feed off of ineffective governance. And then one thing that is very dangerous in the aftermath of a populist right figure, when the established party comes back into power, they often want to show the populism that the populist is gone by restoring decorum. If the populist broke boundaries, they want to reestablish them. If the populist went too far with executive authority, they want to show they're not going to do that. If the populist threw bipartisanship overboard, they don't want to do that. So they'll be very bipartisan. And that feeds the exact dysfunction that got you the populist in the first place. If government is not helping people, then people will not believe in that government. And that opens the window for someone like Donald Trump to come in. So one of the arguments I make in this piece, and I hope folks in the White House are thinking about, is that they cannot stop the next Donald Trump. And by the way, there is a whole Republican conference in the Congress of people willing to be the next Donald Trump. They cannot stop the next Donald Trump by letting Republicans block everything for the next 2 years. The way to stop the next Donald Trump is to show that when Democrats are governing, people's lives are actually better. And by the way, not incidentally, to ensure that people have the right to vote, DC should have statehood. This should be a democracy. You want to not just restore that democracy works, but you also want to make it a democracy for those for whom it isn't and who are often voiceless then when it comes to, say, a Senate election.
Yeah, and there's also just the fact that, look, there's going to be a certain opposition to whatever, this is another lesson I think Adam and Ezra and we all learned covering 2009. Like, they're going to implacably oppose you basically on almost everything. I mean, Marco Rubio saying this is a radical leftist agenda in a divided country will not help unify it. It will only confirm 75 million Americans' biggest fears about the new administration. Like, Adam, like, the Chamber of Commerce endorsed this. Kevin Hassett today, who was serving in the White House 4 months ago, endorsed it.
Well, look, Republicans know that the deeper the hole that is left over from this in 2022, they know that the deeper the hole, the bigger the gains for Republicans in Congress. People are going to punish the governing party if the governing party does not govern. We learned that in 2010, and if the Democrats haven't learned that lesson to a fault, like if they have not internalized it, then they will be in very big trouble in 2022. And they won't be the only ones who are in trouble. Our system of government, our democracy will be in trouble.
Yeah, this is really, really important. I'm glad you guys made time for us tonight. Ezra Klein, Adam Serwer, great to talk to you both. Right as we were going to air, the New York Times broke a bananas story about Donald Trump attempting to sort of stage a coup at the Department of Justice to get rid of the Attorney General, to put in a dude who was willing to try to use the Department of Justice to overturn the election in Georgia. The New York Times reporter who broke that story joins me next. Don't go anywhere.
It's either the assurance of a 165-point certification process, or it isn't. It's either testing an array of advanced safety systems, or it isn't. It's either the peace of mind of a standard unlimited mileage warranty, or it isn't. For those who never settle, it's either Mercedes-Benz Certified Pre-Owned or it isn't. The Mercedes-Benz Certified Pre-Owned sales event now through March 1st. Shop online or drop by your local dealer today.
Among my patients, I often see them have teeth sensitivity as well as gum issues. Does it worry me? Absolutely. Sensodyne sensitivity and gum gives us a dual action effect.
If you can't afford your medicine, AbbVie may be able to help.
Skip to cold relief fast. Alka-Seltzer Plus Power Max Gels with 25% more concentrated power.
Oh, what a relief it is.
So fast.
MoonPod, a breakthrough in relaxation that's quickly becoming the world's most popular beanbag. Our custom zero-gravity bead technology acts as your personalized cushioning system. MoonPod is the most comfortable place in the universe. Try yours today at moonpod.co.
It's time for Sleep Number's January sale on the Sleep Number 360 smart bed. You can adjust your comfort on both sides, your Sleep Number setting.
Can it help me fall asleep faster?
Yes, by gently warming your feet.
But can it help keep me asleep?
Absolutely. It intelligently senses your movements and automatically adjusts to keep you both effortlessly comfortable.
Will it help me keep up with Mom?
You got this.
So you can really promise better sleep.
Not promise, prove. Don't miss our weekend special. Save $1,000 on the Sleep Number 360 Special Edition smart bed. Now $17.99. Plus 0% interest for 36 months on all smart beds. Ends Monday.
We're Thrive Cosmetics. We create high-performance, cruelty-free, 100% vegan formulas. And we love that you love our products, like our award-winning Liquid Lash Extensions Mascara. Plus, with every product you purchase, we donate to help a woman thrive. Join our movement today at thrivecosmetics.com.
With all that we know about Donald Trump's attempts to overturn the election, there are still stories to be told about his behavior that had the ability to shock, to make you pick your jaw off the floor. Katie Benner of the New York Times has this unbelievable scoop tonight, published just 20 minutes ago. The Justice Department's top leaders listened in stunned silence this month. One of their peers, they were told, had devised a plan with President Donald J. Trump to oust Jeffrey A. Rosen as the acting attorney general and wield the department's power to force Georgia state lawmakers to overturn its presidential election results. The unassuming lawyer who worked on the plan, Jeffrey Clark, had been devising ways to cast doubts on the election results and to bolster Mr. Trump's continuing legal battles and the pressure on Georgia politicians. Because Mr. Rosen had refused the president's entreaties to carry out those plans, Mr. Trump was about to decide whether to fire Mr. Rosen and replace him with Mr. Clark. The reporter who got that amazing scoop, New York Times Justice Department reporter Katie Benner, joins me now. First of all, incredible reporting here. I had to read the story 3 times to make sure I was understanding it. But walk us through the story. What did you find?
Sure. I mean, it's very much like what you said in your introduction. It precipitated this crisis within the Justice Department when you saw one of the top leaders of the department basically working with President Trump to see if there was something that could be done at the department in order to overturn the results of the election. Now, this person, Jeffrey Clark, had been rebuffed many times by the acting Attorney General Jeff Rosen and his deputy, Rich Donahue. They said, please, this cannot continue. On New Year's Eve, they had a pretty stern conversation with him on New Year's Eve, which they really tried to understand why he refused to hew to the department's line that nobody had seen fraud. It had been investigated. It was something that Bill Barr had said privately to the president and publicly to the president. And yet Jeffrey Clark, having told them he reads a lot of things on the internet, said that he just politely disagreed with them, and he continued.
So you've got Rosen as the acting AG after Barr leaves. Clark is the head of the Civil Rights Division, which is in department leadership.
Oh, no, head of the Civil
It's definitely
Division.
up there, right? I'm sorry, the Civil Division, my bad. The Civil Division.
Yes, which is important. It defends the administration in court.
Yeah, that's a big part of the Department of Justice. It's that is up near the top of the leadership. And he apparently was introduced to Trump by a Pennsylvania politician, and they start interacting for Clark to be Trump's guy in the Department of Justice, to oust Rosen so that they could ride into Georgia with the DOJ to write some letter on DOJ letterhead to say, you, Georgia, must overturn your results?
Yes, well, first, Mr. Clark asked Mr. Rosen to do it as the acting attorney general. And when that didn't work, he had a conversation with Mr. Trump in which he came away from that conversation thinking that Trump would replace Rosen with himself. And then he offered Mr. Rosen the opportunity to remain at the department as his deputy.
He hatches a Department of Justice coup with the president and offers him, the boss is going to make me the head of the Department of Justice. So we can, this is my words, not yours. So I'm just characterizing. The boss is going to make me the head of the Department of Justice and the acting AG so we can pull off his coup. You can stick around as my deputy, but this is what's going to happen. And then there's a meeting in the White House with Clark and Rosen and the president.
Yes, and this is sort of unusual timing because it happened on January 3rd, which is the exact same day that Georgia Secretary of State released, leaked the audio of his phone call the prior day with Mr. Trump. So you have the entire world listening to the audio of Trump and the Secretary of State in Georgia having this bizarre conversation, which Trump makes so clear that he wants Georgia to change its mind to find votes that would make him the winner. And then at the same time, you have a split screen with this meeting taking place around 6 p.m. on Sunday evening, where the president has set up an interesting situation where he has both Mr. Clark and Mr. Rosen there before him to present their competing visions for what the department should be doing. It was described to me by two different officials, former administration officials, as almost a bizarre version of The Apprentice in which they were selling the better plan.
So it sounds to me from reading your article that enough people at DOJ get read into this plan that they essentially rebel en masse and threaten to all quit if it's pulled off. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes. So Sunday, we'll just go through the chronology. Midday Sunday, Jeff Clark says to the Attorney General, to Acting Attorney General Rosen, I believe that the president is going to remove you and put me in your spot. And then a few hours later, Mr. Rosen's deputy, the Deputy Attorney General, calls an emergency conference call with the remaining top leaders of the department. He reads them into what's going on. He explains what Mr. Clark has been up to. And they discuss what they're going to do if in the coming hours, the president fires Jeffrey Rosen and replaces him with Mr. Clark. They decide that the only option is to leave. And so that was really powerful information because in this meeting with the president that happened a couple of hours later, other officials, including the head of OLC, Steve Engel, who was there, they were able to tell the president, listen, if you do this plan, it's going to blow up this way. It will cause this kind of chaos at the Justice Department. And if nothing else, nobody is going to pay attention to the Jeff Clark letter to Georgia. They will be paying attention to the fact that you have created a Saturday Night Massacre. And that was one of the compelling arguments to Mr. Trump.
Okay, one last part of this, a little bit more of the puzzle. There's this crazy thing that happens, right, which is that the U.S. attorney in Atlanta abruptly resigns amidst all of this. And everybody thinks, well, that's weird. There looks like there's something afoot here. And we've been getting more and more reporting on that. It seems that resignation, which we've now learned was essentially because he refused to prosecute some non-existent voter fraud, that was sort of connected to this entire undertaking.
Well, I mean, I think that what we saw was that the president was obviously very, very obsessed with Georgia, in particular the counties that included the city of Atlanta, which is where that U.S. attorney's office was and where that U.S. attorney served. And so he was informed, not as part of any knowledge of what was going on with Jeff Clark or this strange plan to get rid of the attorney general. But he had been told separately that former President Trump was very obsessed with his district and that it was not going to be tenable for him to stay on. He could stay at the U.S. attorney's office, but he wouldn't be able to be the head of the office just because of all the heat. And I think also he did not feel that he wanted to be in a position where he was constantly scrutinized by the president.
just for the final, to put the point on this, because I want to make sure I understand the plot here. The idea was that the president was going to fire the acting attorney general, a guy who was just serving for a very small amount of time after Barr resigned, replace him with the head of the civil division, this individual named Jeffrey Clark, who was amenable and sympathetic to the president's conspiracy theory, completely fraudulent conspiracy theory, and then use the Department of Justice to essentially instruct Georgia legislatures on behalf of the department that they had to overturn their election?
Well, no, to instruct Georgia legislators that the department was investigating serious allegations of voter fraud that were so serious that it made it pretty likely that the electoral results in their state would not stand.
Gotcha.
And, advise them that they should act accordingly.
I see. So this would give them some sort of evidence that they could point to so that sympathetic lawmakers in that legislature could say, look, the Department of Justice is here, and now we're going to have to go and not seat these electors or uncertify the results.
Correct. And keep in mind that such a letter sent to Georgia legislators would be completely opposite of what the former Attorney General, Bill Barr, had said at a press conference, that he didn't see the kind of fraud that would change the results of the election. It would be in opposition to the things that Attorney General Barr had told the president privately. It would be in opposition to things that Jeffrey Rosen had told the president for weeks privately. Acting Attorney General Rosen was in constant conversation with Trump about this issue even before the idea of the Georgia letter came up. Bill Barr announced that he would be leaving the department on a Monday and that he'd be there for another week. Jeff Rosen's people thought he'd have a little bit of a reprieve because Bill would be in the building for another week and it would be okay. But in fact, the president hauled Jeff Rosen into the Oval Office the very next day to start a pressure campaign asking him to appoint a special counsel to look into Dominion, the voting machine company, to appoint a special counsel to look into voter fraud in general, and to have the department file legal briefs that supported the things that his team was doing in court. So that pressure campaign started not after Jeffrey Rosen became the acting attorney general, but it started the day after Jeffrey Rosen was announced to soon become the acting attorney general.
The whole article is up on the New York Times, NewYorkTimes.com. Katie Benner, what a remarkable bit of reporting, and just a truly incredible scoop and a shocking set of facts that you have unearthed and presented to the world. So thank you for taking time with us tonight.
And thanks so much for paying attention to the very strange end of the Trump era.
Of course, the president's efforts there to overturn the election, which he tried in a million different ways, and we're learning more about it, it ends up culminating right on January 6th. He's failed to get the Department of Justice to help him. He's failed in his lawsuits. He's failed to bully Brad Raffensperger in Georgia. And ultimately, the last-ditch attempt is to go tell a crowd to march down to the Capitol with the hope that they will intimidate the people in the Capitol, including his Vice President Mike Pence, into overturning the election and sealing it for him. That results, of course, in the Capitol riot and siege. 5 people are dead, including a police officer. Hundreds now have been arrested. And the president is then impeached for his incitement of that insurrection, of that riot. Now, one of the House impeachment managers who will help make the case against Trump when that case starts February 8th, the date announced today, is Congresswoman Diana DeGette. She's the Democrat from Colorado, and she joins me now. And Congresswoman, I know that the Times reporting obviously is outside the purview of the specific charge, but it is of a piece with the pattern of behavior that begins before the election, into election night, after the election, and up until the incitement of the riot. Just your reaction to this new revelation.
Chris, thanks for having me. And I will tell you, this is just part and parcel of what Donald Trump was desperately trying to do, which was find any way he could to overturn the results of a fair and legal election in this country. And when I just saw this New York Times story, it's just part of the whole conspiracy that he had to try to stop the counting of the ballots, to try to stop the certification, which, as you say, culminated in him inviting the crowd to Washington, inciting the crowd to come to the Capitol, and then doing nothing after they got here. So it was very, very dangerous. And the more facts that come out like this, it just shows how desperate he was.
We got clearer timing today on the trial itself. My understanding is that the single article we walked over to the Senate on Monday. It'll be read into the record on Tuesday, and then there will be a pause, and the trial will start on February 8th. That's a deal that was struck by Senator Schumer and I think McConnell to start it there. What is your and the impeachment manager's preparation look like right now?
Well, so we were all appointed by Speaker Pelosi on the day the House passed the impeachment article. We've been working every day since then as a team. So we're ready to go to trial. We were ready to go to trial last week. And so it looks like now Senator Schumer's going to accept the articles and then give a couple of weeks. Even more evidence like this New York Times article will probably come out. So we're ready to go. We think we have a strong case that is, here it all unfolded right there on TV and social media. And we really have to convict Donald Trump, and we have to make sure he can never run for office again. Somebody trying to manipulate the Department of Justice, which is supposed to be the independent legal watchdog for our country, is just appalling.
There's sort of buckets of evidence that we've been sort of collecting, right, since the actual thing unfolded. And I wanted to ask you about two of them. So one of them is, I don't know if this is evidence so much, but there are multiple people who've now been arrested who have said, as part of their official defense, like, Donald Trump told me I could do this. Donald Trump invited me. We thought we were there at the president. We have recordings in the Capitol of people saying to Capitol Hill police, we are here from the president. The president invited us. I wonder, is that evidence to you? Is that the kind of thing that you want to present to the jury to make this case?
Sure. It's part of the evidence of the conspiracy. And again, these people are just confirming what we already knew, which is Donald Trump told them in advance, come to Washington on January 6th. Stop the counting of the certified election results by the states. Then he invited them to the White House. And at the White House, he said to them, we're going to march up to the Capitol and we're going to stop the counting of the results. It's just, it's in such plain evidence that you almost forget that it's just incitement of the riot that happened and an attempt to stop the democratic counting of this certified results.
Final question. There's other evidence that I think we have an incomplete picture of that I think I would like to see, which is his resistance to calling it off. There's reporting saying he's watching it, desperate calls from various lawmakers saying, you have to do something, you have to make a statement, you have to let the National Guard get over there. And I wonder how much that evidence plays as well.
Well, we do have evidence already that he did nothing while the riot was happening in the Capitol, while people like me and most of the senators were all running for our lives. And we have evidence that he was just sitting there watching it happily. So again, more evidence is coming out. In a way, we have the impeachment managers, without going into how we're structuring our case, we have an abundance of evidence. And frankly, Chris, the American people have seen all of this evidence on TV and on social media.
Yes, it was a crime committed in plain daylight on national television.
It was on TV. Yeah.
Thank you so much for making time tonight.
Thank you for having me.
All right, lots more to get to this evening. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Fun stuff goes into your vehicle every season of the year. But so does some really messy stuff. You need complete year-round protection, like laser-measured cargo liners from WeatherTech. Or the bump step to protect your bumper. Add laser-measured floor liners to keep the carpet looking new. while the Cup phone keeps your phone secure. So don't let the elements spoil your fun. Order your American-made products at WeatherTech.com.
Stay tuned to get a free pan from Gotham Steel.
Tired of food sticking to the pan?
Excited to do business with you, but before we sign, I gotta ask.
Sure, anything.
We searched you online, and maybe you can explain this?
Can't believe that garbage is still coming in. That is so false.
Frustrated with your online search results? Call Reputation Defender today to join tens of thousands who improved their online reputation. Get your free reputation report card at reputationdefender.com or call 1-877-866-8555.
Has this past year been a little rough on your home? Open Spaces is here to take your space from clutter to contained, neglected to neat, scattered to simplified, from hectic to home again. Open Spaces. Welcome to the new standard of home storage. Shop now at getopenspaces.com.
Yesterday, President Joe Biden unveiled his administration's plan to ramp up the fight against coronavirus, signing new executive orders to lay that groundwork for a federalized response. The quote of the day came from a source who told CNN the new administration had to start, quote, from scratch in building a vaccine distribution plan. Now, that's not strictly true insofar as just yesterday, the United States did administer 1.3 million vaccine doses and another 1.4 million today. But it's true in the sense that everything we've done up until now has been completely distributed down to the states and totally insufficient. So when it comes to building a sufficient federal centralized response, creating the infrastructure to sustain that, well, yes, the Biden administration is basically building that from scratch. For what that can and should look like, I want to bring in Dr. Peter Hotez, Dean for the National School of Tropical Medicine at Baylor College of Medicine, co-director of the Texas Children's Hospital Center for Vaccine Development, and who is also working on a coronavirus vaccine. Let's start, Doctor, with the scale of the problem and what the timeline should be. As President-elect, Biden had pledged 100 million doses in the first 100 days. Well, right now, we're doing 1.3, 1.4 million a day. My sense from the people I'm talking to is that's not ambitious enough. What should the number be? What should we be targeting?
Yeah, Chris, I mean, here what the numbers look like. We have to vaccinate, we think, 3/4 of the U.S. population in order to have any hope of interrupting virus transmission. We know those who get vaccinated, it will save their lives in terms of keeping them out of the hospital and the ICU because of the virus-neutralizing antibodies. But to do the second part, to interrupt transmission, we have to vaccinate 3/4 of the U.S. population. That's roughly 240 million people. Many of those vaccines are 2 doses. You're looking at 500 million immunizations. And if you want to do that by the summer, we're talking 5 or 6 months. So that 100 million over 100 days, it's if you divide 500 million by 5 or 6 months, it's really 100 million a month. So we really have to get to around 3 million immunizations a day. Look, I think it's great that they set some targets. It's good to throw a number out there, and it's good to have goals, but the real numbers are actually far higher. And I know the Biden administration gets it. They're really working aggressively to put that infrastructure in place.
Right. So that, I mean, that's very useful for me as a benchmark, right? Like if we're hitting 3 million a day, we're on track, and if we're short of that, we're not, and we need to get up to that. I know you've looked at the Biden plan. There's money in this COVID relief bill if it gets passed, and there's a more proactive look at it. Like, what's the difference between where we are now and 3 million a day in terms of what has to happen?
Well, you know, if you look at the 0.5 billion is the aspirational goal, the target that we really have to reach. Remember, we have to do that in a hurry now because we have new virus variants coming along, and we want to immunize before they continue to accumulate. And we've only administered around 20 million doses or so. 20 million divided by 5 billion, Chris, you know, that's a rounding error. We basically haven't done anything. Yeah. We're starting from zero, more or less. So we're going from 0 to 500 million. So it is one of the most daunting tasks ever faced by an incoming presidential administration. There's a good team in place. It's going to require going beyond the pharmacy hubs and the hospitals. We're going to have to get in some high throughput immunization centers, and I know that's being worked on in collaboration with some of the cities and the federal government. And we're going to need additional vaccines. We're not going to have enough of the mRNA vaccines to make this happen. We have to get the other vaccines released through emergency use authorization, the adenovirus vaccines, the particle vaccine. We have a vaccine, and that's got to happen pretty quickly as well.
Right. So we've got the two right now, Moderna and Pfizer. There's a Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which is a single shot. I mean, it seems key here, both from just a supply and also availability, that as we're moving into the spring, to have 3 or 4 or 5 vaccines that people can get.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and I think we can get there. I think the J&J vaccine will get up soon. Hopefully, the AstraZeneca Oxford. You know, we'd like some more help getting our recombinant protein vaccine into the U.S. We're scaling it up to make 1.2 billion doses in collaboration with Biological E in India. And if we could get some help from the U.S. government on that, that would be great. The particle vaccine from Novavax. So it's all possible. A lot of stars are going to have to align. We're also going to need an unprecedented level of communication that's simply not there right now, and that's got to ramp up and probably streamline some of the restrictive guidelines, because that's creating a lot of confusion. Remember, think high throughput and getting a lot of people through as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and the messaging, I mean, it's a great point. Like, we just don't have, there is no blanketing the airwaves of like vaccine talk. It just seems like it should be a huge thing that the government is doing, telling people like vaccines are available. Here's how you can get them. They're safe and effective.
Yeah, we have to change the culture. Remember, Operation Warp Speed was a good program from a development point of view, but it never had a communication plan. The communications were left to the pharma CEOs who were not strong communicators. So you're absolutely right. We should be hearing those pretty regularly. And also, every elected official right now, every public official should be able to answer the following question. What are you doing when you wake up in the morning to help the American people get vaccinated? This has gone beyond a public health concern. This is a full-on Homeland Security crisis. People are scared. They're angry. They're calling Sam's Club and Walmart and Rite Aid and CVS. How do I get my mom vaccinated? How do I get my brother vaccinated? How do I get vaccinated? The phones either are not being answered often, or they're saying, well, why are you calling us? We don't have any vaccine, and they refer to some outdated list that has no relevance. This is not a good situation, and so we're going to have to fix this very quickly.
Dr. Peter Hotez, as always, thank you for sharing your expertise with us. Still to come is House Republicans object to metal detectors in the wake of the Capitol riot. One of them is caught trying to carry a gun to the House floor. Matt Fuller of HuffPo broke that story, and he joins me next.
As someone with hearing loss, I know what a confusing and frustrating experience getting hearing aids can be. That's why I founded Lively. Affordable, high-quality hearing aids with all of the features you need and none of the hassle.
I use Lively hearing aids, and it's been wonderful.
It's so light and so small.
But it's a fraction of the cost of the other devices.
They cost thousands less.
It's insanely user-friendly. You take the hearing test online, the doctor programs in the settings. You don't even need to go into an office.
They're delivered to your door in a few days, and you're up and running in no time.
It connects via Bluetooth to my phone.
You can stream music, and you can answer phone calls.
The audiologist was so incredible.
She's full of all kinds of little helpful hints.
I love it.
They're a game changer for me.
I feel like I could take on anything.
It feels great to be in control of my hearing.
Better hearing has never been this easy. Try Lively risk-free for 100 days. Visit listenlively.com.
Introducing the all-new Triple Steel Non-Stick Cookware. Layers of stainless steel with an aluminum core for fast, even cooking. The finest midnight diamond ceramic surface for true non-stick performance and easy cleanup. And now with a brand new stackable space-saving design. Cook and look glass lids keep in the heat. Go from stovetop to oven. Metal safe, toxin-free with new Stay Cool handles. Blue Diamond Triple Steel Collection starts at $29.99. Available exclusively at Amazon.
What's up, America? It's your boy Ice-T. And if you know me, you know I love my cars. No matter how much I love them, I know they're gonna break down. And that's why I protect my babies with Car Shield. I know a car out of warranty means repairs are going to be expensive. And Car Shield helps get those repairs covered so I don't have to. And they can do the same for you. It's that simple.
We saved over $6,000 on a complete engine rebuild of our truck.
The dealership told me, well, you know, you have to pay for this. I said, no, don't have to pay for this. Why? I got Car Shield.
When your car breaks down, you can take it to any certified mechanic or dealer, and Car Shield handles the rest. Your show-stopping coverage also includes roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage at no additional cost.
If you're into throwing money away, hey, I guess do your thing. But if you're like me and millions of other people who don't want to get stuck with expensive repair bills, then call Car Shield. I trust them with my car, and you should too.
Car Shield covers most makes and models from 5,000 to 150,000 miles.
If your car broke down, could you afford thousands and thousands of dollars to fix your engine, transmission, or computer system? Most people would say no.
Without Car Shield, there was no way that I could afford to get my car fixed.
It's not like the old days when you could fix anything with a wrench and a screwdriver. Now you need to be a rocket scientist. And when your check engine light comes on, well, that's game over. So show your car some love and give it the protection it deserves from Car Shield. Tell them Ice-T sent you. And remember, Car Shield cars go farther.
Make the smart choice and protect yourself from expensive car breakdowns. Call now for a free and instant protection plan quote. It's only a matter of time until repairs are needed. Call 800-977-0426. 800-977-0426. 800-977-0426.
Use a single HR software? Nope. We use 11. 11.
Why do an expense report from your phone when you can do it from a machine that jams?
I just emailed my wife's social security number to the entire company instead of HR, so please come back.
How hard is your business software working for you? With Paycom, employees enter and manage their own HR data in one easy-to-use software. Visit paycom.com for a free demo.
Hon, first off, we love each other.
Even after the Capitol was attacked by a violent mob seeking to stop the peaceful transfer of power, a majority of House Republicans, 139 of them, along with 8 Senate Republicans, voted to do what that mob wanted, which was to block the seating of the electors that made Joe Biden president. None of them have expressed remorse or regret. And in the House, a battle has been ratcheting up over whether some of those Republicans who sided with the mob can bring guns onto the House floor. It started when metal detectors were stationed near the House chamber after the riot. Some Republicans refused to go through them or to be checked with wands if they set them off. Members are not allowed to carry guns on the House floor. And then came a culminating moment yesterday. Republican Congressman Andy Harris was caught trying to carry a gun onto the floor and barred from entry. The U.S. Capitol Police tell NBC News they are now investigating. It's worth noting that Harris almost got in a fistfight with other members on the night of the riot when Democrat Connor Lamb criticized Republican members for their election lies. The reporter who saw it all go down is Matt Fuller, who covers Congress for HuffPo, and he joins me now. So before we get to this moment, just describe that. It's very clear, and I've gotten this largely from your reporting, along with others. You know, it was a new thing to put these metal detectors onto the House floor. It was in the wake of this very traumatic event where people were scared. It's become this point of contention, right, where Republicans hate it and they try to walk around it. Like, what has been built? What built up to this moment?
Yeah, so the first vote back after the January 6th riots, they installed these new metal detectors, and frankly, I'd say about half of the Republican caucus just ignored it, sidestepped it, walked through quickly. I saw like 10 of them at one point just sort of like bum rush the thing and just kind of walk through, and the cops are kind of in this impossible position where they don't really know if they have authority to stop the members and make them go through the metal detector. There's apparently some constitutional questions about, arresting a member of Congress on their way to a vote. So there's all sorts of issues here. They've slowly, this has been escalating for 2 weeks, but they've put some desks on the side, some velvet ropes, and they've made it a lot more difficult for members to sort of bypass the security And yesterday I think was the hardest I've seen it, and there was really I only saw 3 people get through the security without being wanded down. And there are steep fines coming. Eventually, there's going to be a $5,000 fine for the first time and a $10,000 fine thereafter. But basically, it's very difficult for them to get through. And Harris has been one of those members who has been just sort of rushing through, not stopping for the police. And yesterday, with the new measures in place, a cop sort of stood in front of him, blocked him, and he was just sort of forced to be wanded down. And at that point, they found a gun on his side. So this is certainly a concerning thing, particularly as you noted, because he's, a member who almost got into a fight 2 weeks ago.
So wait, he gets wanded down. They find a gun. There was a detail you had that he just went and tried to give it to a colleague who was like, I don't want your gun.
Yeah. So, I think a normal person going into the House chamber, if they were trying to bring a gun, they'd be tackled to the ground, arrested. With a member of Congress, it was sort of a polite conversation where he's very close to the cop. The cop sort of signals to another officer he's got a gun on him. And Harris just sort of walks away, and he's in this sort of vestibule area where there's elevators, and he's kind of just milling around. I kind of followed him in, and I saw him have a conversation with Republican John Katko, who's a former U.S. attorney, and he was basically having none of it. Basically, Harris asked him to take his gun for him, and Katko said, I don't have a license for that, and I'm not going to do it. And Harris kind of, he milled around a little bit more, and then he made a couple comments about he reminded his staff to tell him to take off his gun or something, and then he got in an elevator and he left. And 7 minutes later, he was back, and I don't know where he put the gun. I don't know if he put it back in his office, but he got back on the House floor. He went through the metal detectors. There's no problem.
Yeah, House rules are that you can't bring a gun on the floor. There are places in American life where you can't bring guns. And Republicans, Matt Gay, saying they're trying to disarm Lauren Boebert on the floor of the House of Representatives because ultimately they're coming to disarm many, many more. I think the House floor seems a good place not to have a gun. That's just me. Matt Fuller, who is a great set of eyes and ears on that House floor. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
I appreciate it.
That is all in for this week. The Rachel Maddow Show starts right now. Good evening, Rachel.
Good evening, Chris. Thank you, my friend. Much appreciated. And thanks to at home for joining us this hour. Super happy to have you here on this Friday night. And can I show you a thing right off the top? Point of personal privilege. Look, that's my mom on the right, and that's her sister, my aunt, on the left. That's the two of them getting vaccinated tonight. My mom is 79. My aunt is 82. I can barely keep it together. My dad is due for his vaccination tomorrow. We feel very lucky. The first people in our family, first people in our extended family to get vaccinated. And tonight, here for the interview, for the first time during the coronavirus crisis, is the man who, at least at a personal level for my family, made that possible. How many people do you know who said they would not get vaccinated against the coronavirus unless and until Dr. Fauci got vaccinated, unless and until they heard from Dr. Fauci personally that it's time, that it's safe, that this is how we're going to beat this thing? How crucial has the public's trust in this one scientist been since the start of this global and national nightmare? It is an unprecedented thing in American history. And Dr. Anthony Fauci joins us tonight for the interview. Dr. Fauci, I feel like we have a lot of catching up to do. I've been trying to get an interview with you here on the show since March. Now that there's been some change at the top in Washington, it's great to finally have you here, sir. It's a real honor.
Thank you very much, Rachel. It's about time, don't you think? Yes, indeed. I'm really glad to be here with you.
Let me start off by asking you just about how the new administration is starting. Over the first couple of days, we've had about 30 actions by the new president, many of them on coronavirus, everything from using the Defense Production Act more to try to meet supply shortfalls, to requiring people to quarantine when they come in from other countries, to setting up a new preclinical program to try to advance therapeutics. Lots and lots of direct individual actions by the president right off the bat. Are there any of them that you disagree with?
Rachel, no, I don't. This has been a very well planned out. It's the national strategy for COVID-19 and pandemic preparedness. It's about a 101-page document. It's very finely detailed. And one of the things that I found really very encouraging and gratifying in the meetings that I've had, first before, just a few days before the actual inauguration, and then yesterday, for example, when I was with the president and the vice president, the things that he said to us, myself and other members of the team in private, were just so encouraging. I mean, he said, let science speak. Let science be the thing that drives us. Let's just be open and honest and transparent. We're not going to get everything right. There will be some mistakes. There will be some missteps. The response to that is to fix it and not to point blame and point fingers. It was just an amazingly refreshing experience and conversation that we had. And he wasn't doing it for show. This was like behind closed doors in the White House, where he was just telling the team how he wanted this to go looking forward. That was like on the second day, the first day after the inauguration. So we have a plan. We have a lot of things that have already been implemented, such as the executive orders that you mentioned. I mean, I myself, one of the first things that he asked me to do was to represent him as the leader of the delegation to the World Health Organization Executive Board. Try to get up in the 3 o'clock in the morning to be the representative at 4 a.m., which was 10 a.m. Geneva time, to do something that the rest of the world was really looking at. And that is getting us back into the WHO, making sure we're an important part of the collaboration, the cooperation, and the solidarity that's needed globally when you have a global pandemic. So we really hit the ground running.
I know that the outgoing president, or the former president, made this generalized case that wasn't specific to coronavirus, but made this case that international cooperation and then us being part of international or even just multinational efforts was weakness, was a generosity that Americans shouldn't afford, particularly at times of crisis, that we should take care of ourselves. It seems clear from your enthusiasm for the U.S. rejoining the WHO that you think that's not just an act of international American benevolence. You think that's good for us. Can you explain why that is?
Oh, absolutely, Rachel. It's good for us, and it's good for the rest of the world. When you are dealing with a global pandemic, the response must be global. And if there's any phenomenon which is antithetical to this idea about provincialism and total nationalism and keep everybody out, that is the opposite of what you need to do when you're dealing with a pandemic. A pandemic, by definition, pandemic. It's the entire planet that's involved. So in many ways, we're no different than other nations. We're no different than other regions. And the only way we're going to get this thing under control and crush it, which I feel we will if we do it and pull together with the kind of solidarity, cooperation, and collaboration. It just makes no sense to think that you're going to exclude the rest of the world when you're trying to respond to a global pandemic. It just doesn't make any sense.
We've now had not that many weeks' experience, but a few weeks' experience in our country administering the 2 different approved vaccines that we've got so far, Pfizer and Moderna. Has anything emerged over all these weeks to indicate that one of those is any more effective or more safe or more easily tolerated than the other? Or essentially, should the American public, as people find out that they've got an appointment to get vaccinated? Today, when I found out that my aunt and my mom got appointments and were going in, I burst into tears. I was so happy. And then I asked them which vaccine they were getting. I'm not sure what that was supposed to mean to me. Have we discerned any difference between the vaccines that we've got in terms of how people tolerate them or how they work?
Right. Well, if you look at the big picture, Rachel, the United States government has been involved in the development and or the facilitation of the testing of 6 candidates. 2 of them have already been shown to be highly efficacious, 94 to 95%. They're the same type of vaccine. We call it a vaccine platform. This one happens to be the mRNA platform. We have others that are close behind that'll soon be evaluated for efficacy and safety, and very likely will have the same positive fate as these 2. but the two that are out are essentially identical in the sense of very, very little, if any, discernible differences. They're 94 to 95% efficacious. They have a good safety record. So when people ask me, which one did you take? It just so happened that the Moderna one was shipped to the NIH, where, as you know, I work. So I got the Moderna one. If the Pfizer one had been shipped, it would have been exactly the same. I would have said no difference whatsoever. So whatever your mother and your friend got, I believe that it would make no difference if they got Moderna or Pfizer.
How close are we to the approval of any of the one-dose vaccines? And mathematically, obviously, that's going to make a difference in terms of the size of the pipeline, in terms of getting vaccine out to the community. How close are we to those?
Real close, Rachel. I would think that no more than 2 weeks from now, the data will be analyzed in the similar fashion, the way we analyzed it with the Moderna and the Pfizer candidate. That is, an independent data and safety monitoring board will look at the data, determine if it's ready to be given public to the company so that they can go to the FDA and ask to see if they could get an emergency use authorization. You know, I don't want to get ahead of them, but I have to tell you, I would be surprised if it was any more than 2 weeks from now that the data will be analyzed and decisions would be made. That's really good news, as you said, because that would be, if it does get an emergency use authorization, yet again another candidate that does have some differences. And that's good because it gives a wider range of flexibility. One, it's a single dose. That's really important because you could expect to start to see results, 10, 14 days or so right after. And then when you get to 28 days, you probably continue to go up. But it has a less stringent cold chain requirement, which is really good by moving it around and making sure you don't waste doses.
Do we have any lessons learned so far in terms of distributing the vaccine most efficiently? Not in the abstract and not in the generic sense, but getting it into Americans' arms right now in early 2021. Are there some settings or some delivery sites that we thought would make sense to give vaccinations that haven't been all that good at it, that we should shift away from? Are there lessons learned already?
Yeah, there really is. I mean, it hasn't been perfect when it goes from the delivery and the distribution into people's arms. We like to have been done better. I think, you can abstract it and go back and say, well, we've planned this. It looks like it's going well. Then when you get on the phone and talk to people, as I say, in the trenches, you see that not everything is perfect. In some respects, that's understandable because it's a new process that's just been initiated. However, getting back to the plan that I had mentioned that you asked me about, that President Biden had put forth, is that there's a very strong emphasis on getting the vaccines, more of them, the equipment that you need, using the Defense Production Act to get as much as we can, and making sure we put into place at the local level the capability of getting it to people in a situation where it might be difficult. Community vaccine centers, getting pharmacies involved, getting mobile units involved. So the one thing we've learned, that the science in the development of the vaccine has been breathtaking, I might say. I mean, we did something in less than 11 months, or about 11 months, that normally would have taken years to get a vaccine that goes from the identification of a brand new virus to the time you're actually injecting into people a successful vaccine that is safe and effective. That's unprecedented. Now what we've got to do is we've got to get the logistics of getting it distributed and into people's arms in an efficient way. We're not there yet. There have been some missteps. We got to do better. What the president and the vice president have said is the goal, which I think is a challenging goal, but a reasonable goal, to get 100 million doses, to get 100 million people vaccinated in the first 100 days. So that's the thing we're going to strive for. Ultimately, we want to get the overwhelming majority of the population, and I would think that would have to be about 70 to 85% of the population to get that umbrella of herd immunity, which then when we get there, Rachel, that's when you start talking about getting back to some form of normality. And in order to do that, you got to pull out all the stoppers and really go after it to get as many people vaccinated as possible. And that's actually the plan as part of the national strategy.
I feel like I've started to understand this as sort of different columns of necessity, and one of them is science. And as you describe, it was a breathtaking scientific achievement to have the development of safe and effective vaccines that quickly. Then we've got the implementation, which is a logistics and governance thing in terms of getting those shots into people's arms. But then there's also the public health issue of prevention. And on that, we've been terrible. And even with all of the success in column one and hopefully the new commitment to column two, on prevention, we're still having hundreds of thousands of Americans infected every day. And for them, and especially having had somebody close to me get very sick with the illness, I've been really focused on the issue of therapeutics, treatment for people who didn't get the vaccine in time, for whom prevention